In the early 1960s, a lot was going on in the world. The space race was intensifying, the construction of the Berlin Wall began, and Martin Luther King made his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, which became an integral part in the US civil rights movement. And it was within the 60s that the American voters chose John Fitzgerald Kennedy, or JFK, as the 35th President of the United States, making him one of the youngest elected presidents, second only to Theodore Roosevelt, who only succeeded to the presidency after the assassination of President McKinley. But it was within the presidential campaign that John F. Kennedy would meet a prolific Kenyan labor leader known as Thomas Joseph Odhiambo Mboya, more often referred to as Tom Mboya. It was when he, John F. Kennedy, was senator that he first met Tom Mboya at a conference on international matters. Tom was on tour seeking scholarships and opportunities for Kenyan and East African students who at the time had limited access to education owing to the strict British colonial rule at the time. The two politicians must have hit it off, as Mboya's request managed to secure several scholarships from both American and Canadian institutions. The program did attract big names at the time, including businessman William Scheinman, former baseball star Jackie Robinson, singer Harry Belafonte, and actor Sidney Poitier. They created the African American Students Foundation, AASF. The program had the objective of raising funds for the fortunate individuals chosen. The funds would cater for the cost of travel and living expenses of the students. It is important to note that the funding was only to supplement the funds raised by the families of the students. The project didn't get off to a great start, as initially the federal government denied funds to the program, prompting JFK to seek alternative sources through the Kennedy Foundation. This effort was meant to be a low-key affair, but after word leaked out, it set the stage for a lot of back and forth, which we cannot cover in this video. A good portion of the students that benefited from the program ended up making history one way or another. One was future Nobel Peace Prize winner Wangari Maathai from Kenya, a great environmental activist behind the Green Belt movement that sought to fight deforestation and encourage people to plant trees. Another beneficiary was Barack Obama Sr., father to future US President Barack Hussein Obama, who went on to the University of Hawaii.
The slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation...
As mentioned before, JFK was a senator seeking to clinch the presidential seat. In his attempt to gain political mileage in the race, the senator and his brother Robert called Georgia Governor Ernest Van Diver and petitioned to have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to be released after he and many other students were arrested for protesting. This act of kindness spread through the black community quickly and is believed to have been the reason he won almost 70% of the black vote come November. John F. Kennedy became president in 1961, and a big chunk of his short tenure was used up trying to maintain US relations with the Soviet Union and Cuba. On March 1, 1961, through an executive order 10924, he established the Peace Corps, a program through which American volunteers would help underdeveloped nations in matters such as education, healthcare, agriculture, and construction. He is also remembered for championing civil rights and urging Americans to recognize civil rights as a moral cause.
Well, there are two major problems in a developing country like ours.
Further afield, Tom Mboya started off as a sanitary inspector at the Nairobi City Council, known today as the Nairobi County Council, around 1950. It was around the same time that he got elected as president of the African Staff Association, which he shaped to be a trade union under the name Kenya Local Government Workers Union. He would work as Secretary General for the union up until he left for studies in Britain. Upon the arrest of Jomo Kenyatta during the Mau Mau uprising, Mboya would use trade unions as a means to fight for independence. In 1961, whereas JFK had been elected president, Kenya's future first president, Jomo Kenyatta, was released, and alongside Mboya and Oginga Odinga formed the Kenya African National Union, KANU, which turned out to be instrumental in the active fight for independence. Mboya would go on to become Minister for Economic Planning and Development up until his death. Both budding politicians died very early in their careers. John F. Kennedy was first to die in November 22, 1963, after his assassination in Dallas, Texas. The president was in a motorcade riding through Dealey Plaza with his wife Jacqueline, alongside then Texas Governor John Connally and his wife. JFK was then fatally shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, who was in a nearby building. He was pronounced dead around 30 minutes later while at the hospital. The Texas governor, on the other hand, was wounded but recovered. Oswald was arrested and charged with murder, But he too, on November 24th, almost 48 hours after the president dying, was murdered before trial by Jack Ruby at the Dallas police headquarters. 6 years later, around 8,772 miles away, John's friend, Kenyan politician Tom Mboya, was assassinated while out in public as well. On July 5th, 1969, Tom was gunned down in the Central Business District after coming from a nearby pharmacy. The alleged killer, Nahashon Isaac Njenga Njoroge, is said to have fired the fatal shots and disappeared into a crowd and was only arrested later. Upon his arrest, Mr. Njoroge is said to have asked, "Why don't you go after the big man?" triggering suspicions of a political assassination. Unknown to many at the time, Njoroge was part of the youths picked by Mboya Oginga Odinga, father to Raila Odinga, and the then Kenya African National Union Education and Publicity Secretary, Kariuki Njeri, to get military courses in Bulgaria. It was at the Vasil Levski Higher Military Academy, named after the revolutionary who led an armed uprising during the Ottoman Empire, where Tom Mboya's assassin received training in internal combustion engines, military techniques, and firing preparations, the last two being crucial to what he would do later in 1969. And thus, that is the fascinating story of two instrumental political figures who both got assassinated in broad daylight just 6 years apart. Both seemed to be politically charged and premeditated murders. Both assassins had a military background. Both their suspected killers died. Those that ordered the hit weren't found. Both figures got bronze statues of themselves, the JFK statue standing at the Kennedy Center complex and the Tom Mboya statue placed just a few meters away from where he was assassinated. And fittingly enough, both have universities attached to their names, which is a great honor given that they were both champions of education. And that marks the end of this video. Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. Feedback is always appreciated. And what other topics would you like covered? Make sure you've subscribed and turned on post notifications. Like and share the video. Till next time, bye.